Welcome everyone. This is nice and awkward with a microphone. Can everyone hear me at the back of the room? Because sometimes with the traffic, we can get perfect. So exciting. This is our first in-person meeting since COVID, but it's also in the history of the Y, the first hybrid meeting. So please give us some grace as we do it. We've got an owl camera that picks up the speaker. And also we can see folks that are online as well, and they can, we have someone monitoring the chat function. So we will get started. So I'm just waiting until we, okay. Does everyone have water, Prosecco?
How is she starting the meeting?
All right, please rise for the entrance of Her Honor, no, that's not them. It says, please sit. Good practice. You guys nailed it. You nailed it. Although I did see some sprinklers on this end, so Patrick, I'm calling you out. You seem to really slow to get up.
Okay, I'm grabbing water.
Okay, grab a water. Janice, can you pick one up for anybody? Anybody need a water? Okay, and there, we'll wait for Janice to sit. No, okay, so please rise for the entrance of Her Honor, the Honourable Salma Lakhani, Lieutenant Governor of Alberta, and His Honor, Dr. Sayer Lakhani.
Your Honor here.
And you can come,
Your Honor here.
welcome, Your Honor. All right, we can all sit. Thank you so much. We had a practice before you came in. And I'm glad we practiced because I did see some problems with it. So Tansei, good evening. My name is Katherine O'Neill and I am the CEO of YWCA Edmonton. And welcome to YWCA Edmonton's 115th Annual General Meeting and Office Opening. We are honored that you are joining us tonight, either in person or online for this very historic evening. And for those of you joining us in person, welcome to Cushing House. It's our new community space that is named after YWCA Edmonton's very first program that opened in 1907. Cushing House was a refuge run by women for women in need of housing, job training. So 115 years later, our dream is that for Cushing 2.0, that this will be a gathering space for our community, particularly folks who are working to create a better city and a better community for all. Before we officially start our annual general meeting, which has lots of moving parts, I want to call, and then we call the meeting to order. I would like to introduce two special guests who are going to come to the podium to bring blessings and greetings. We have Knowledge Keeper Lorette Goulet and Alberta's 19th Lieutenant Governor, Her Honor, the Honourable Salma Lakhani. First, I'm going to call on Knowledge Keeper Goulet to come to the podium to provide a blessing for our new space. Her Cree name is Turtle Woman, and she was given this 25 years ago when she began her slow journey of walking another way and following the teachings of her elder. She has worked with Indigenous groups for more than 40 years and has been able to learn so much from many elders and knowledge keepers who have enriched her life and teachings. And we are very honored at YWCA Edmonton to not only call her a friend, but also a colleague. We're working together on some really incredible projects. So more on that later, but now over to Knowledge Keeper Goulet to bring a blessing. Thank you
for that wonderful introduction. I am Turtle Woman, and I'm often late, but tonight I was on time. Yeah, I'm really darn proud of that. So, anyways, I'd like to start with a prayer for this evening. Natawilan Kisi Manitu. Creator, we thank you for giving us another day. We thank you for all the beauty that surrounds us, for everything that Mother Earth gives. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. And we thank you for all the beautiful people in our lives, our families, our children, our grandchildren, our spouses, all of those friends that are close and dear. We ask that you would take care of them, keep them safe, and watch over them. And please, Creator, watch over us tonight and take care of us always and walk with us so that we can walk with kindness and love in our hearts and make this world a very peaceful place. And tonight, we thank you, Creator, for giving this new place to the YWCA and for all the incredible work that they have done. With grateful hearts, we hope that they will continue to do that work in the best way that they have been able to do it. And also that they remember to keep that kindness in their hearts as they do and work with the people step by step to help them to heal and also to provide that love and also that connection to Mother Earth with the programs that they have, especially the ones out at the camp. We ask that you continue to bless them and help them in the wonderful work that they do, because being here for over 100 years is a remarkable achievement. So continue to walk with them, Creator, and bless this building and help everyone that comes here to know the kindness and love that they are capable of bringing to them. So we thank you and we ask that you will be with us in everything that we do. And we thank you for allowing us to finally meet together. It's been a long time. Thank you, Creator. Hi, hi.
Hi, hi. Thank you, Knowledge Keeper Goulet. Hi, hi. Beautiful blessing. And earlier in the evening before we started the meeting, thank you for blessing our new office. You will smell willow, fungus, and sage when you walk in. Every room was blessed, and we really want to thank you and Prairie for doing that for our new office. Thank you. Next. Oh. Next, I would like to ask Her Honor, the Honourable Salma Lakhani, to come to the podium to say a few words. She's also joined tonight by His Honor, Dr. Sahir Lakhani as well. And we're particularly excited to have Alberta's Vice Regal in attendance on such a historic night for YWCA Edmonton. Not only is Her Honor such a trailblazer and a celebrated champion of women's and girls' rights, but also because 115 years ago in this very city, the very first Lieutenant Governor of Alberta came to our very first AGM, and he also, George H. Y. Billier, also came to the opening of the very first Cushing House. So we found it, we were just absolutely honored to know that you could join us tonight to not only open our new offices, but to mark such an historic evening for our organization. So, Your Honor, thank you for supporting us tonight. I call you to the podium now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katherine. I would like to begin by acknowledging that treaty relationships are an essential part of the Crown in Canada, and I am proud to honor them in my role as Alberta's Lieutenant Governor. So thank you so much and hello to everyone here at Cushing House and all those joining us online for this 115th annual general meeting of the YWCA Edmonton. Our city and our society as a whole have changed a great deal since 1907, when, as Katherine mentioned, my predecessor, Alberta's first Lieutenant Governor, the Honourable George Goulet, presided over this organization's inaugural AGM. At that point in our history, women did not have the right to vote. And while that changed for most Alberta women in 1916, our First Nations sisters would be forced to wait another 50 years to be granted that right. It is difficult to find accurate data on visible minorities in Edmonton at the turn of the last century. But given that the percentage as recently as the early 1980s was approximately 3%, we can conclude that being a person of color in this city in 1907 would have been an isolating experience, to say the least. And now, 115 years on, the social fabric of our capital city and our country has changed dramatically. For example, I have the honor of serving as Canada's first Muslim, South Asian, and African-born vice-regal representative, as well as Alberta's fourth woman to hold this position. I hope that firsts of this nature will continue to unfold in our society until they are so commonplace that we no longer notice or comment on them. The positive movement forward that our society has experienced through the decades, the opening of doors for more and more people, has been fostered by valued organizations like the YWCA. For 115 years, this wonderful agency has been a leading force in bringing much needed progress for women and families. YWCA Edmonton has worked to help build a city that offers health, education, opportunity, and equity for all. And I know that countless lives have been transformed for the better, thanks to this organization's compassionate, forward-looking programming and its tireless advocacy. As Her Majesty the Queen's representative in Alberta, I offer my most heartfelt thanks to all of the dedicated leaders, staff, volunteers, board members, and supporters who keep this essential organization going strong. I'm looking forward to seeing your proud history of service continue in this wonderful new office and community space. Your work together has already touched countless lives, and I know that you will continue to lead the way in helping people find the tools, opportunities, and supports that they need to thrive for many, many more decades. Thank you all, stay well, and I wish you all the very, very best in this new facility.
Thank you, Your Honor, the Honourable Salma Lakhani, for those inspiring words. And thank you for being such a trailblazer. As I said before, we all look up to you so much, so thank you. So a few housekeeping things before I call on Pejs, our president, to officially start this AGM. There will post-meeting be a reception in our new office space right next door. We'll have some of our staff members guiding folks down, but it's literally walk to the end of the sidewalk and you'll see a big YW sign and walk in, and there's going to be tacos from Frida's next door. We have cookies from Bloom Cookies. We have drinks, and we also are going to be giving tours of the new facility. So please join us after this meeting. For folks that are joining us online, I'm so sorry, no cookies for you, but we are so happy for you to be here tonight. I wish I could send them somehow, but that's just more impetus to come next time in person. Please keep yourself on mute if you are joining us online. And if you have something to say, raise your hand or put something in the chat box. We have staff that are monitoring the chat function. And if you require any sort of technological help, Nikki is going to be putting her cell phone number in the chat function as well. So you can pick that up if you need help. I also want to welcome some very special guests that are joining us, not only in person, but online. We actually have folks joining us from across the country. So that's the beauty of a hybrid meeting. We have Children's Services Minister Rebecca Schultz. We have Edmonton Glonora MLA Sarah Hoffman, Edmonton Highlands Norwood MLA Janice Irwin, who's in person, Edmonton Whitemud MLA Raki Pancholi, Acting YWCA Canada CEO Rain Lillefeld, Edmonton Heritage Council Executive Director David Ridley, 124 Streets BIA Executive Director Luann Kiffel-Mariam. Yes. And we have, last but not least, our keynote speaker, Jacky Ford, who will be speaking later on. She's our former CEO and has been a force for women's rights and social justice in our city for a long time. We did receive regrets tonight from the Associate Minister of the Status of Women, Whitney Isaac, Mayor Sohi, Councillors Knack and Stevenson. They had a council meeting tonight. So hopefully some of them will be joining us at the reception post. So with that, I want to turn it over to our AGM over to our President, Pejs.
Thank you so much, Katherine, and good evening, everybody. And welcome officially to our 115th annual general meeting with YWCA Edmonton. It's approximately 6:19, and I officially call to order. I would first like to invite Clarice Anderson, our YWCA Edmonton Board Director for 5 years, as well as the Chair of our Truth and Reconciliation Committee, to come forward and kick us off with our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Kim. Danse, Clarice Anderson, and Ghossein. Onis Caponi, Zinnia. Hello, everyone. My name is Clarice Anderson. I'm from Sad Lake Cree Nation. And I just want to thank Lorette for the wonderful opening of starting in a good way. And like you, I arrived on time tonight. So I picked up my son Friday, who's in grade 5. And as we drive home, I always ask them how their day was at school. And he said, I had a great day. Today was the best day. I said, tell me why. He said, well, a knowledge keeper came to my classroom today. And she shared teachings of the medicine wheel. He said, so how did that make you feel? I said, proud of being Cree and proud of being Indigenous. I'll share this with you because I parallel and go back 67 years ago when my dad walked into Blue Quills Residential School at the young age of 5, and he was there for 11 years. And he was given the number 47. And so when we look at those two experiences, we know that that's why reconciliation is important. And we know we have a lot to unlearn because, like many in here, we didn't hear the true history. And so land acknowledgements are one small act of reconciliation. And I speak today of the experience because I often don't give a land acknowledgement like I welcome. I do a story and I do a little teaching because I think that's important I brought my water, so I'm not going to talk for 10 minutes, but I do want to acknowledge the work of the YWCA. Being the chair of the Reconciliation Committee, I can't say how proud I am of all the work, the lunch and learn sessions, the fact that the whole organization engaged in an online MOOC course for Indigenous learning was amazing in such a short period of time. So I just want to thank them for all the, and I'm really happy to continue as a volunteer on the committee. So hi.
Hi.
Great. Thank you so much, Clarice. Clarice and I started on the board 5 years ago today. It's been amazing working alongside you. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Again, my name is Kim Pejs, and I've had the honor of serving as the board president of YWCA Edmonton for the past year. And my role is to oversee our AGM tonight. We have YWCA staff, members, volunteers, and numerous special guests, as we've heard, at this meeting. And we are just so delighted that all of you have made the time to attend, to express your support and your loyalty to this amazing agency. Welcome also to lifetime members. You've helped shape our organization through the years, and it's been a privilege also to have you with us here tonight. My wholehearted thanks goes out to our fantastic management team and all the employees as well that are joining us. So we begin a new chapter tonight, as we've talked about, with our first AGM in Cushing House 2.0. I just want to extend a special thank you to Katherine and team for identifying the financial benefits of this move and designing such a functional, beautiful, and welcoming space that we'll all get to experience even further later on this evening. Us being here together tonight is a significant milestone for YWCA Edmonton, as we also celebrate our 115th birthday. So with moving on to business, with passing a motion tonight, I will assume that you support the motion unless you speak up to object or abstain or write something in the chat, which we have these two lovely ladies monitoring. We will pause after each motion to allow you to speak up if you'd like to. I would also ask that if you move or second a motion to please state your full name so we can correctly record it in the minutes, and then say I move or I second. And please note that only paid and lifetime members can vote during our meeting tonight. And also, if anybody has a question or comment during the meeting, please state your full name and raise your question or comment. So quorum for the annual general meeting tonight is 20 members, and I believe we're good to go. We've got confirmation of quorum tonight, so that's great. So I think as in your meeting materials are on our agenda, our first order of business is item 2.0, the appointment of our recording secretary for this meeting. And it is our practice that the executive assistant to the CEO takes our minutes. So Nicole Breland, sitting right here, is our executive assistant. And in her role, she supports our board meetings as well as the AGM. And just want to thank you so much for everything you do, setting up this amazing space and keeping everybody always on track, Nicole. So may I ask for someone to move a motion to appoint Nicole Breland as our recording secretary tonight? So thank you, Megan, for moving. And may I have someone second the motion?
I'll second. Irina Hilliard.
Thank you, Irina, for seconding the motion. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I call for the vote. So all in favor of appointing Nicole Breland as a recording secretary? Voting cards and pens, perfect. Anyone opposed? Thing in the chat? Okay, the motion is carried. We've got through our first motion. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Nicole. So next I will call for approval of the agenda for our annual general meeting. The agenda has been emailed and included in the materials as well. So may I have someone move a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented? To move that motion. Thank you, Francesca. May I have someone second the motion? Clarice? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, so seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor of approving the meeting agenda as presented? Perfect. Anyone opposed? All right, the motion is carried. Got one more before the reports. Okay, so next we're going to move forward to the approval of the minutes of the 114th annual general meeting held on April 28th, 2021. The minutes were also included in the package. So may I ask someone to move a motion to approve the minutes of the 114th annual general meeting as presented. Dow, thank you. May I have someone second the motion? Cam. Thank you so much. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of the 114th AGM as presented? Perfect. Anyone opposed? Nothing in the chat. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you, everybody, for those motions. So we will now move on to section 5.0 and our reports. And the first up is my report as board president. So there's no denying it. This pandemic has been difficult, but difficult times call for determination, perseverance, and teamwork. As Edmonton's largest and oldest women's organization, we are no stranger to hard work. And so we continue to work harder than ever. YWCA Edmonton has been a powerful voice for equity and social change since 1907. Our North Star has always been gender equity, and we work hard every day to build a world that is safer, stronger, and equitable for all. While progress has zigged and zagged over the decades, YWCA Edmonton has been part of major development and progress in 2021. Including the success of our award-winning Searching for Irina project. This has been a joint project with Party A that chronicled 100 years of female leadership in the Edmonton City Hall. Our year-long campaign has been credited with helping our city elect a record number of women, 8, to Edmonton City Council in October. I'd like to just give a clap to the board. We also did behind the scenes advocacy work with YWCA Alberta to help with the YWCs across Alberta to bring a historic $3.8 billion Alberta Canada childcare deal to our province this fall. I think that one also deserves a nice round. We also assisted with 2 new Indigenous-led healing retreats in Alberta for family members of missing or murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Those retreats collectively honored the memory of 43 women and girls. So again, another big accomplishment. Highlight a couple others is we've helped host a national conference for BIPOC youth called Imagine That. We collaborated with Direct Her to set the foundation to deliver a series of educational offerings and taking the next step in board service and leadership for women. Our inaugural Rose campaign advocated for our community to act on gender-based violence, helping us achieve record-breaking fundraising towards our violence prevention and recovery programs and services. So again, just a round of applause for the amazing work. There's even more accomplishments, and we of course can't get to it all this evening. So please have a look at our annual report that's available at the front if you'd like to see even more details. And beyond this, I wanted to do a special thanks to our staff for all their hard work and innovative efforts during this unprecedented time. Our long-standing YWCA Edmonton services and programs never stopped through the pandemic, as well as all the other great work that we've been doing. So we were able to offer more than 4,000 subsidized counseling sessions this year, which is a record number. So I think it also deserves a round of applause. We also worked with more than 200 adults and children living with disabilities in our community, and Camp YWCA safely hosted close to 800 children during our popular summer camp. Again, some amazing accomplishments with our long-standing services. In March 2021, Katherine O'Neill completed her first year of service as CEO of our organization. The board thanks Tenfold HR for graciously partnering with us to complete a robust 360 review, which highlighted for us her strengths and strong relationships. Under extremely taxing circumstances for a new leader, Katherine has led her team and organization for many successes, even as the global pandemic stretched into its second year. Katherine is backed by an incredible leadership team, including Amber Niemeyer, Terry Cohen, Ashley Lim, and Jamie Dean, who are all with us tonight. So thank you to the leadership team. Finally, thank you to our board directors. As volunteers, I appreciate the time and effort you've given our 115-year organization. It's an incredible group of women and community builders who believe deeply in our mission to make an equitable city for everyone. So thank you to the board. It has been my honor and privilege to serve as YWCA's board president this past year. I feel so fulfilled to have contributed to such an amazing organization. Later this evening, the board will be voting in our new executive council, which includes Kathleen L. Halton-Lake as our new board president. We both joined the board in the 110th AGM and have had an incredible 5-year journey together full of learning and growing. And I'm confident that the board and the Y will continue to thrive with Kathleen's leadership. I'll be staying on the board for another year and look forward to continuing this great work with such a strong team of community builders. So with that, I will now turn it back over to our Chief Executive Officer, Katherine O'Neill.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you for your service. And thank you for recapping 2021, because I would like to use my time to kind of talk about the road ahead and what we see happening at YWCA in the next year and ways you can get involved. It's a very exciting chapter for our small but mighty organization, and our new office is a huge part of the next year. Not only were we able to reduce our rent and occupancy costs by more than $120,000 per year by making this move, but our new street level location puts us squarely back in the community at its greatest hour of need, particularly with the COVID recovery. So I want to thank a lot of people for that help. Everyone from Jarrett Campbell, who is with us tonight, he donated his professional services to help us look for a new office, to Vermont Property Group, our new landlord, who offered a very generous tenant allowance that paid for the majority of these renovations. They also allowed us to have our furniture for rent-free up on the 4th floor for several months while we waited for this renovation to be done. We also want to thank Avis and Young, who have been an incredible partner. I'm looking at Corey and Scott, they're at the back. Avis and Young helped with the construction. They also helped us find this new office. And they knew we had a small but mighty budget, and they would always look for donations, including construction materials. And so you'll go and look at our new office and think, wow, there's glass walls and beautiful countertops, and it's largely because of their hustle and their generosity that we're able to build such an incredible space. So thank you, Avis and Young, for your help with that. Even this sign used to stand on top of our old building, the Empire Building. High Signs helped us take it down, gave us a general donation. They help with the cost of getting it here. And we think it's honoring our history of our past office and hopefully, celebrating our new office. So just so many different partnerships. And at the end of the day, we were able to do this with very little money, but massive impact. And what's so incredible about this office is not only how accessible it is, but how modern and beautiful it is. When you come into the new space, it's happy, it's bright, and for our staff and our clients and our community, post-pandemic, it's a beautiful place to come and rebuild and heal and celebrate and just gather again. And so really excited that this space will be used so much by our community. We've already had several meetings in Cushing House. Director Network has had board camps here. We've had board meetings. This will be a space that I dream that it just keeps moving. If you drive by, I hope every time you drive by, you see people sitting in it. 2022 will also be a year that YWCA Edmonton returns to its roots and helps connect women and children in need of affordable housing. We've partnered with the City of Edmonton and Avana, a Saskatchewan-based women-owned construction company, on an innovative new housing project in South Edmonton. It's set to open this spring. There's 30 units that have been set aside for women and their families who are fleeing domestic violence. And we are so proud to be working with Avana to partner and bring the women that will be able to rebuild their lives in these new homes. In 2022, we're also proud to work with several incredible female Indigenous leaders, including Lorette, Prairie, and many others, to offer 3 more healing retreats for family members of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. They'll be hosted at Camp YWCA, and it's fully funded by the government of Alberta. We are deeply honored to have gained your trust, and we cannot wait to support these programs. We will also be holding events to mark our 115th anniversary, so watch our social media channels for ways that you can get involved. It's going to be another very busy year, so you're probably saying to yourself, how can I get involved? What can I do? Lots of ways. Please consider investing in our work, donating, become a monthly donor. Your money helps us be very flexible, be very nimble to be able to do things like the Searching for Irina project. That was something that came up quite quickly, became a year-long campaign and had massive impact. So please consider donating, but if you can't donate money, consider donating your time as a volunteer. Got lots to do, so please head to our website and find ways to connect. I want to conclude by expressing my heartfelt thanks to our entire leadership team. Amber, Terry, Jamie, and Ashley. I have asked a lot of you the last 8 years. When you look at the annual report, it's a lot. We have done a lot, but many others just tried to survive. We went out on a lot of limbs to do very innovative, very incredible things in our community, and I can't thank you enough for being with me on that journey. I also want to thank our staff as well, because they have been so resilient, so courageous, and so compassionate during this time. You're bright lights who never accept the status quo. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd like to now hand this over to our treasurer and chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, Irina Hilliard, for her report, which has lots of great news.
Good evening, and thank you, Katherine. Please note that there are copies of the entire financial statements available if you need them. And you will note that the highlights are in the statements contained in your annual report as well. I'm very happy to report that our auditors, M&P, issued an unqualified opinion on the financial statements this year. An unqualified opinion means that an independent auditor has deemed that our financial records and statements are fairly and appropriately presented in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for nonprofit organizations. This is a great achievement. A big thank you to our CEO, Katherine, and to our Director of Finance, Jamie, for their hard work to keep this level of excellence in a challenging year. For the year ending December 31st, 2021, our overall revenues of 12.7 million were higher by 1.48 million compared to prior year. That's impressive. The increase primarily was a result of increased revenues from fees for service in our disability services, as well as Camp YWCA of 1.3 million. It was really exciting to see Camp YWCA run at half capacity this year. It was a large part of the increase. It was great. There was an increase in donation, government subsidies, counseling fees for service, and expired disability service contract from 2018. Our expenses increased by 1.4 million this year compared to last year. Most of the increase was directly proportionate to the increase in direct services we provided, as well as the leasehold improvements for $180,000. Of that $180,000, $96,500 will be received as free rent during the periods of 2022 through 2027. These will be recorded as a reduction of rent and utility costs over the term of that lease. It is important to note that as of December 31st, 2021, our investment income performed well from 2020 to 2021 of $68,687. You will also note that the bottom line in our statements of operations shows a profit of $340,000. We recognize that Alberta economy is always unpredictable, and we know that many people are facing employment and investment challenges and uncertainties. This is why we're so grateful for each and every dollar that comes to YWCA and each and every donor, funder, contractor, and sponsor who gives us money or services. Many donors and fundraisers, contractors and sponsors are in attendance today. We want to thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the financial statements? I move that the treasurer's report and the audited financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2021 be accepted as circulated. May I have someone second the motion? Thank you, Teresa. Any further discussion? See no further discussion, I call for a vote. All in favor of approving the treasurer's report and the audited financial statements as presented? Anyone opposed? The motion is carried. I have one more duty to perform as treasurer. Every AGM, we appoint an auditor for upcoming year. 2021 was our 10th year working with MNP under the direction of Patrick Moore, who is a partner with MNP. Once again, Patrick and his team, especially Amanda Whipple, provided an outstanding service, and we were so wonderful to work with. MNP works with us year-round to ensure our books and our records are sound. We're very grateful to for their counsel. Patrick and Amanda, thank you. I move that MNP be appointed the official auditors for the YWCA Edmonton for the year ending December 31st, 2022. May I have someone second the motion? Thank you, Pam. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I call for a vote. All in favor of approving MNP as auditors for YWCA Edmonton for the 2022 fiscal year? Anyone opposed? The motion is carried. That's my report. But before I hand back the microphone, I want to thank the Director of Finance and Operations, Jamie Dean, and our accounting assistant, Tracy, for doing a great job in the finance department. I would also like to thank the volunteer members of the Finance and Audit Committee, Pam Zrobic, Kemi Kafur Bawachi, Lillian Zanari, Jill Dyson, and Mayhan, who have assisted in organization over the last year. Lastly, my term as treasurer is now completed after 3 years. It's been a real pleasure working with such an amazing organization and such a wonderful group of people. Thank you. I would like to hand over to the chair of the HR Nominating Committee, Francesca Ghossein, for her report.
Thank you, Irina. Good evening, everyone. My name is Francesca Ghossein, and I've had the honor of chairing the HR Nominating Committee this past year. I was very fortunate to get to work with an amazing team and to meet so many talented, interesting candidates during our board recruitment. I wish to acknowledge the contributions of my fellow committee members, Kim Pejs, Kathleen Ilhatton-Lake, who's online, Megan Klein, and Sandra Michaketza. I also wish to acknowledge that Katherine, as CEO, served as an ex officio member of the committee. Nicole provided administrative support, and Amber also kindly stepped in during interviews. So thank you to all three of you as well. It's the HR Nominating Committee's role to recruit qualified board members to serve our governance mandate. We began soliciting nominations for new board members in December. We broadened our sourcing strategy to attract a more diverse pool of candidates. We had a total of 27 very impressive applicants, and of those, we interviewed 10 women. Prior to soliciting applications, the board completed a skills assessment, which showed us that we needed skills in the areas of reconciliation, the TRC calls to action, and Indigenous communities, youth civic leadership, governance and government relations, and expertise in YWCA services generally, including psychology, disability services, and outdoor education. The HR nominating committee is confident that we're presenting a strong slate of candidates for election. And before we move to vote, I'd just like to remark that it was a very difficult selection process this year with many incredible applicants. And those candidates that were not selected for recommendation to join the board, they've been directed to our various committees for consideration, and many of them are involved in other capacities with the organization. Many organizations would be envious of the position that we were in, and to have this much talent wanting to contribute to the YWCA Edmonton is a great honor and a testament to the good work of the organization. The bios for the candidates that we are putting forward for election were included in the announcement package, and the HR nominating committee strongly endorses these women. So without further ado, I now move to appoint the following slate of candidates to stand as directors of the YWCA Edmonton board for their first 3-year term to end in April 2025. So we have Kemi Kufor-Boachi, Sierra Rare, Kelsey Zasky. Actually, can I get you to just stand up so we can see your face? So we've got Kemi, sorry to put you on the spot. Sierra, Kelsey Zasky, Megan Avopadas, and Michelle O'Keefe. Okay, may I have a seconder for the motion? Okay, Irina will second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Welcome, Kemi, Michelle, Sierra, Kelsey, and Megan. We have a tradition that new board members receive the YWCA Canada pin and a portfolio upon election. Oh, there they are. Perfect. Magic. We also have current board members who have now completed their first 3-year term and would like to continue to serve on the board for the second 3-year term. This commitment demonstrates the engagement level of our board and supports the organization with board stability. As such, I move to appoint the following director to a second 3-year term to end in April 2025. Pams Robeck. May I have a seconder? Megan will second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none. Anyone? Oh, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Kim, our president.
Thank you, Francesca. And I'm speaking on behalf of Kathleen, who's online tonight. So we have another bylaw that states that we must elect the chair of our HR and nominating committee at the annual general meeting. And Francesca has done such an incredible job. So I would like to move to appoint Francesca Ghossein as chair of the HR and nominating committee for 2022 to 2023. May I have a seconder? Clarice, thank you. And any discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. 27 candidates for a board, like amazing, was volunteers. So thank you for leading us there. Okay, so with that, I will call for the vote. So anybody, sorry, I've done a few of these and we still have a few more. So call for a vote, all in favor? Anybody opposed? All right, motion is carried. We continue on. Thank you so much. Okay, so our final order of business is to thank our 5 outgoing board members, Irina Hilliard, as she mentioned, Marina Bannister, Lisa Holmes, Clarice Anderson, and Dow Haddad. On behalf of the board, as well as Kathleen, as mentioned, who I'm speaking on behalf of, we'd just like to express our deepest gratitude for all the contributions that you've brought to our team. We've all learned so much from you, and we would just like to share a few words on behalf of us, as well as the board as well. So Dow, if you want to just like maybe stand up and give a wave if we were doing standing, so this is Dow. Perfect. Dow always brings energy to everything she does. She lights up every room, and there's a reason her Instagram is Motivator Dow. She has made an invaluable contribution to YWCA's fundraising on the Philanthropy Committee and on our Reconciliation Committee. Dow has a special talent for bringing people together to learn and grow through facilitating group discussions and meaningful conversations. Dow will miss your leadership in connecting us with each other and our communities. So thank you, Dow. And sitting next to you, Clarice. Clarice, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and your personal experiences, just as you did tonight. I know that you've made such an impact to us as individual board members and have led the YWCA on our reconciliation journey. Your wisdom and experiences have allowed us to grow, which would not be possible without your voice and your patience. We appreciate you staying on the Truth and Reconciliation Committee as a community member for after 5 years of board service. So thank you so much, Clarice. Turn it back to Francesca, who will walk us through our other 3 board members. And we miss you, Kathleen.
Thanks, Kim. I agree. Irina, thank you for your contributions as treasurer and chair of the Finance and Audit Committee for 3 years. We appreciate you womaning the helm in addition to your challenging career and young children at home. You have a no-nonsense way about you that gets things done, and your insight and guidance have made the organization stronger, and that will live on. Thank you for you staying on the Finance and Audit Committee as a community member as well. Lisa Holmes. Lisa donated hundreds of research hours to the Searching for Irina project and was credited with finding an original photo of her first woman city councillor, Irina Ross. A lot of the information she helped uncover will now be stored at the City of Edmonton archive for future generations to access and learn from. Thank you also for your keen insight at the board table and your 3 years of board service. Marina. Lastly, we have Marina Bannister. A big thank you for making us all look lovely for our headshots. More importantly, thank you for your work nationally and locally supporting the organization that we all hold near and dear to our hearts. You contributed to our advocacy and our Truth and Reconciliation committees during your 4 years on this board and always brought the YWCA Canada perspective to our board table. I'd also like to thank Marina on a personal level for encouraging me to apply to be on the board. It's something that she does. She plants seeds and encourages the people around her to always reach for new opportunities. And we appreciate your continued leadership with YWCA Canada as a board member. To all 5 women, we could not have accomplished the great things we have without your hard work and dedication to the cause. It's been such great fun to be part of this amazing group of women. I'll now hand the meeting back to Katherine to introduce our guest speaker for this evening.
Thank you so much, Francesca. We are very close to being done, but this is probably the most exciting part of the program because we get to bring to the stage as our guest speaker, Jacky Ford, who was a predecessor of mine. She held the role of CEO of YWCA Edmonton from 2010 to 2018 and really helped transform the YWCA, modernize it, and help build it up. And it was, so lucky to walk into your shoes when I arrived at YWCA. And what was it, 2020? I'm like losing track of time. COVID years feel like a decade. Jacky has spent much of her life pursuing social justice and advocating for the equal application of human rights. She has 25 years of experience in senior leadership positions in the not-for-profit sector. And last month, she wrapped up her tenure as the branch manager of social development for the city of Edmonton. She devotes lots of time to volunteerism in our city. She's a member of the International Women's Forum and was the inaugural chair of the Women's Advocacy Voice of Edmonton, WAVE. She was the president of Good Hearts Transplant Foundation and serves on the boards of the Ribbon Rouge Foundation and the Edmonton Community Legal Center. In 2013, she was named one of Edmonton's top 100 women in business. And in 2014, she received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Edmonton Pride Festival Society. And last but not least, as I said before, she served as our CEO from 2010 to 2018, Jacky Ford.
Thank you, and wow, no pressure. It's been 2 years since I've been out with a microphone in public, and I think, yeah, it's Jacky Unplugged tonight. So it's so good to see all of you here, and I'm trying something different. I'm trying to use my computer to do this tonight, so we'll see. It is wonderful to be here on Treaty 6 territory this evening to celebrate a special and historic occasion. My only wish is that all of those folks online, hi, I know a few of you out there, all of those online were here with us tonight to feel the energy in this room and to see this incredible space. And how great is it to have her honor with us tonight? It's a privilege. And your honor, is that the right term? Your honor, his honor, the good doctor. It's so great to have you both with us this evening. And the historical link to the very first AGM is pretty special. You know, I admire you and your work so much, and Albertans are very, very fortunate to have you serving us. Thank you. Also want to congratulate the new board of the YWCA. We just saw democracy in action, an election in real life. No mail-in ballots, nothing like that. I don't think anyone told the new board members, but the ones who have been around for a while know there's an enormous privilege and enormous responsibility that comes with serving on the board of the YWCA. You are now tasked with making decisions that will impact the organization and the quality of life for women and girls. I know you are all capable and ready to rise to this challenge, and I wish you all the very best in your upcoming term. And just to be clear, when I use the term women and girls, it's an inclusive term. And what I actually mean by that, because it takes a long time to repeat this over and over, and I'm going to use that phrase a lot tonight. When I refer to women and girls, I'm actually talking about women, girls, two-spirit, trans, and non-binary people. Big shout out and thank you to the staff at YWCA Edmonton. Today's YWCA Edmonton team has taken the torch of leadership and service that has been passed from staff team to staff team for over a century. I'm very proud to be part of that legacy. You have all honored that legacy by continuing to provide important services and advocacy while all the while staying true to your mission and values. Your service is very much appreciated. Thank you. So tonight kind of feels like a combination of a housewarming party and the birthday party of the city's most mature, that would be old, matriarch. And I didn't know until last week that a person who has reached the age of 110 is actually called a supercentenarian. That's actually a word. And by the way, I looked and there's no special term for someone who has reached the age of 115. So I'm calling this organization a supercentenarian plus. So we're here tonight at a party where the Grand Dame of Edmonton is celebrating her birthday, and she just moved into a new house. I think it's safe to say that this is new party territory for all of us. And I'm feeling tonight like my role is to make the toast to the guest of honor. So in the true spirit of YWCA activism, my toast will be partly a celebration and recognition of your accomplishments, but mostly it's going to be a call to action because the next 115 years is just around the corner. So I did a rather cursory Google search, and I may be wrong, but I think the only other two nonprofit organizations in Alberta that have been around for more than a century are the Red Cross and the YWCA. So pretty elite group. But it really shouldn't surprise anyone that the oldest charitable association, one of the oldest charitable associations in the city and in Canada, is a women's movement. Feminist women do not give up easily. And so of course this organization is still here. But it is mind-boggling to think of all of the social changes that this movement has encountered and has overcome in its history. This grand dame has seen 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the Industrial Revolution, the Sexual Revolution, the Age of Information or misinformation, depending on your perspective. You fought for women's right to vote and women's right to choose. You've seen floods, famine, droughts, and fires. Hell, this isn't even your first pandemic. And after all you've been through, I really wish that we were all here to toast your retirement. I would like nothing more than to say, take a bow, take a rest, and know that you have achieved equity for women and girls. But I'm one of those party guests. I'm sorry to be the one to have to tell you that despite the fact that you worked hard for 115 years, you can't retire. In fact, we may be at a point in our history where we need you more than ever. 4 years ago, I left my job at the YWCA and went to work for the City of Edmonton. My role at the city was to lead the social development branch, which meant that in essence, my team and I were responsible for the city's response to all the social issues that we see in our community. That included poverty, homelessness, violence against women, mental health, racism, and advancing reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. In the first couple of years, my team, working with hundreds, and I mean hundreds of community partners, made progress. Homeless numbers were falling. The Edmonton Mental Health Strategy was launched. We hosted the UN Safe Cities Conference. We were implementing many of the recommendations, the End Poverty Edmonton report, and we were learning how to listen and support BIPOC folks with the goal of dismantling racism and colonization. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, but it felt like the community, all of us, we were moving in the right direction. Then on March 11, 2020, the United Nations declared the pandemic. Everything changed. By the way, fun fact, thanks to a friend, I get a daily text reminder of the number of days since the pandemic was officially declared. For all you numerologists out there, today is the 777th day of the pandemic. I'm sure there's a lottery ticket number in there somewhere. My role at the city gave me the opportunity to bear witness and lead during the greatest social upheaval in the history of Edmonton. Within days of the declaration of the pandemic, COVID-19 laid bare every flaw and weakness in the social safety net that Canadians had always been so proud of. Social programs and government supports that had been in place for decades were no match for this virus. The immediate issues we saw were income security, food insecurity mostly, access to childcare, access to the internet, and safety and services for those experiencing homelessness. And we watched in real time the elimination of thousands of jobs, mostly in female-dominated sectors. As the months went on, we added more issues: a drug poisoning epidemic, mental health crisis for both adults and children, increasing incidents of gender-based violence, public acts of racism, seniors' isolation, and an ever-increasing number of people living on our streets and in our parks. People who never in their wildest dreams thought that they would have to turn to a charity asked for help in record numbers. And despite facing all the same challenges that had bested so many others, the charitable sector in this city delivered. They created drive-through curbs and curbside pickups for food and books and clothes. They created virtual after-school programs, They started delivering mental health services online. Case in point, the YWCA. They created Zoom fundraising events. They adapted. But I also saw the human toll that this work had on the sector's employees and volunteers. And by the way, women make up approximately 2/3 of all the employees in the charitable sector. It has been 2+ years of emotional labor and relentless adaptation. A year into the pandemic, I was proud and awestruck by the resilience of this sector and its people. Today, I feel like all of us have moved beyond resilience to some state that I can't quite put a handle on. For me, it feels like the most uncertain time in a time of great uncertainty. Is this over? Is there another wave coming? Will the business model that you've just created be the right one for tomorrow? Will our donors come back? Will the absolutely exhausted staff want to continue working in the social service sector? And what does build back better actually mean? In those rare moments of quiet, when I had the time to reflect on the thousands of decisions made by governments and civil society, decisions we were making to try and repair, strengthen, and in some cases just prop up that failed social safety net, I was keenly aware that the pandemic was impacting women and girls like no other segment of our society. I took comfort knowing that the YWCA was there doing what they always do. And now, as the focus shifts to recovery, I can say without hesitation and without exaggeration, our city will never fully recover from this without a strong YWCA Edmonton. And it wasn't just me thinking and worrying about the impact of the pandemic on women and girls and women's movement. A United Nations policy brief stated that with the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, even the limited gains women have made in the past decades are at risk of being rolled back. The Canadian Human Rights Commission said these disproportionate impacts on women could have long-term and far-reaching consequences. If we are to restore momentum in our efforts to bring about gender equality in Canada, social and economic recovery efforts must take a feminist approach. So I'm really sorry, but I'd say no time to rest. We need you to continue to do the work you do every day. But at this particular point in history, I'm going to be one of those pushy party yes. I'm going to tell you what to do, even though you're old already. I'm going to still tell you what to do. I suggest that you need to pay particular attention to reconciliation, racism, the economic recovery, gender-based violence, mental health, and housing. Let's talk about reconciliation and racism. I was really, really encouraged and happy to hear all of the work that Clarice and Lorette and Prairie are doing on behalf of the YWCA and with the YWCA. Reconciliation and racism were, of course, big issues before the pandemic. But now we have the opportunity to rebuild our community on a foundation of genuine and sustainable equity and inclusion. Maybe that's the real meaning of Build Back Better. Having worked here, I'm really ashamed, but I will admit that I didn't take much time to examine the historic role of the YWCA in colonization. But it would be safe to assume that over its long history, there were decisions, policies, and actions that caused harm to Indigenous peoples. And that doesn't just apply to the YWCA. Many organizations are examining their previous actions and charting their future through the lens of reconciliation. I've heard good things tonight, but I know it's a long journey. It bears repeating that you have to continue that journey. You need to continue to work through the calls for action from the Truth and Reconciliation Report and the calls for justice in the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And yes, this line may be overused, but it is still true. It is not enough to be non-racist. You have to be anti-racist. Racism plays out in every single institution and area of life. If we don't actively stand up to it, that is, be anti-racist, it will continue to stop people, particularly women and girls, from participating and actively engaging in public life. Reconciliation and anti-racism work is not just important to the post-pandemic recovery. It is absolutely foundational to the ongoing survival of the YWCA movement as a whole. Now let's talk about the economy. In March 2020, women represented 70% of all the job losses across this country for people aged 25 to 54. 70%. Just think about the wealth, productivity, and human potential all lost in a matter of weeks. Right now, all three levels of government are working on economic recovery strategies. Women were not included in the design of our current economic structure, and we cannot be left out of the creation of the new one. In June of 2020, the 4 YWCAs across Alberta made a submission to the province's Economic Recovery Council. YWCA Canada also released a feminist recovery plan for Canada. These are important documents. I encourage all of you to read them. And they cannot just sit on the shelf. It also appears as if we're about to enter one of Alberta's infamous boom cycles. We've all been there before. We're going back for another ride. It's great news for a lot of people, but we can't lose sight of the fact that historically, new jobs created in boom times in Alberta have traditionally been in male-dominated professions. Now is the time to break that tradition. Let's ensure that government grants and incentives are crafted in such a way that women get their fair share of those jobs and that they have equal pay. Nice rolling here. The YWCA can lend its voice to the growing living wage movement in Alberta. There are too many people, in particular, too many women in our city who work full-time hours and still struggle to pay food and rent. I'm not talking about minimum wage, I'm talking about a living wage. And one of the greatest barriers to women's full participation in the economy was the lack of affordable and accessible healthcare, childcare. The YWCAs in Alberta and across this country deserve tremendous credit for their role in making the new national childcare system a reality. Now we need to keep track of how many new spaces are actually being created and if indeed they are affordable. I would love to see an annual YWCA report card on the state of childcare in Edmonton. Next on the list is gender-based violence. And I almost didn't mention gender-based violence. There is no other organization on this planet that understands the impacts of gender-based violence better than YWCA. You have carried this load for a long time. My call to action on this is a demand, is that you demand action. There have been countless, and I mean countless, gender-based action plans written by every government of every stripe over the last 100+ years. Yet when the pandemic hit, those plans were either not implemented or were not effective. Ending gender-based violence requires 3 things: funding, better public policy, and political will. It is time for the YWCA to say loudly and very often that the time for planning and platitudes is over. It's time for action. Next up on my pushy list of things for you to do in the next 115 years is mental health. Let's talk about mental health. The YWCA Counseling Center doesn't just specialize in gender-based violence. They provide all types of counseling for all types of issues. It is no surprise that during the time of great upheaval, loss, and uncertainty, the YWCA psychologists were there when people needed them. Mental health was mentioned by all politicians all day, every day during the pandemic. But holy, I'm not going to say holy cow, it is time to show the money. The fact is the nonprofit sector, including the YWCA, has been offering mental health services for low cost or no cost for decades. Those services are funded by bake sales, and galas, and auctions, and yes, breakfasts. And while organizations are out fundraising, the healthcare system is saving millions of dollars. If mental health really is as important as everyone said it was during the pandemic, it is now time to fund community-based mental health services. I encourage the YWCA to work with other providers to create a strategy to tell AHS and decision makers that what the charitable sector does in this space and why you deserve to be treated as the mental health care professionals that you are. That means respect, recognition, and remuneration for the work that you do. And the last item on my list is housing. In November of 2017, YWCA Canada was on Parliament Hill for the Day of Action. Every member association in this country, and a lot of people, some people in this room, were there that day in Ottawa. The strategy was to talk to MPs from all parties about applying a gender lens to the national housing strategy. Excuse me. That ask at the time felt really bold. The YWCA wanted 25% of the National Housing Strategy funds to be dedicated to projects and services for women, girls, and their family. Took a lot of time to get to that point, but we landed. Fast forward a few months to the 2018 federal budget. The government announced $40 billion in new housing dollars. And sure enough, I think I was sitting in my office with Amber listening to the budget speech, and sure enough, the government announced and pledged that at least 25% of the investment would support housing for women and girls. It was a clear victory and a testament to the power and influence of the YWCA movement. Fast forward to today, and it is not an exaggeration to say that we are in a full-scale, full-blown housing crisis. On the market side, prices are high and stock is low. On the non-market side, supply is inadequate, and much of the existing social housing stock in this city is over 40 years old. In May of last year, this is just a year ago, 10,400 Edmontonian families were on the wait list for social housing. That's unconscionable. And you know that number has grown in the last year. Women's housing needs are more complex and require gender-based solutions. And before I get into my specifics and tell you what to do around housing, I have to say something about shelters, because so many times people say, well, what about the shelters? Homeless shelters and women's shelters are not the solution to the housing crisis. I can't say that enough, because we talk a lot about shelters and the lack of spaces. They're a stopgap measure. Homeless shelters in this city and right across the country, to be honest, are not safe places for women, girls, trans, two-spirit, and non-binary people. And the vast majority of shelter spaces in this city are designated for men. Women's shelters are underfunded and oversubscribed and are in old buildings that haven't been properly maintained for decades. Emergency shelters do have a role to play. However, we need to start designing them and operating them as short-term stays for people on their way to more permanent and dignified housing. So what can the YWCA do to ensure that women have access to permanent and dignified housing? First of all, time to put on your auditor hat. Maybe Patrick can help you with that. The federal government is funding a substantial number of supportive and affordable housing builds right now, today. Are they holding to their promise that 25% of those units are for women? To be honest, I don't know. But I would suggest that maybe another YWCA report card would be in order. There is also federal funding available for Indigenous housing, and several of the calls for justice in the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report are related to housing. I encourage you to work with your Indigenous sisters to make sure those calls to justice are being fulfilled. And you also need to advocate for women's only supportive housing. Approximately 750 of the 3,000 Edmonton homeless people are women. Moving into supportive housing means that they can access on-site cultural, financial, social, and medical supports. It's life-changing. The city and the federal government are currently building supportive housing, but the province has yet to commit to paying for the operating funds for these homes. Talk to the province. Help them see why supportive housing is important, especially for women who currently live on our streets. They are in constant danger of physical and sexual assault and often resort to trading or selling sex just for a place to stay. None of us can be okay with that. And before I stop talking about housing, I'm going to tell you a story. At the city, I signed a lot of documents, most of them electronic, but affordable housing funding agreements still have to be signed with a pen touching a piece of paper. I distinctly recall one evening going through a stack of agreements when I came upon the one with Havana Homes. It was a relatively small grant, I think about 1.7 million maybe. But I did get a little verklempt, emotional when I was signing it. I think I texted Amber and said, look what I'm doing. As Katherine mentioned, this money was going towards building 30 new townhomes in a brand new neighborhood. And they will be rented out to women and their families at below market rates for the women and families who are leaving domestic violence. This may be the first brand new housing for women leaving violence built in this city, specifically built in this city in a generation. It's an incredible accomplishment. So I was a little emotional. And then I got to thinking, and Katherine alluded to this as well. In 1907, the first YWCA Edmonton program was an affordable housing project. The Cushing House. The room, I think it's this room that is Cushing House or Cushing Place. It's named in honor of this space. For many years, including the years that I worked here, Edmonton was the only member of the YWCA Canada movement that wasn't providing housing or shelter for women. And that really bugged me. Got into my craw. It felt like we were failing. It really didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. And I was really happy that when we did go to Ottawa, the YWCA Edmonton said, of course we're going to talk about housing. We don't provide housing, but of course we're going to talk about it. But 115 years after opening your first housing project, you are now once again offering housing, and you are working in partnership with a female-led for-profit developer. It's innovative in this space. It's the right business for you to be in, and it's going to change lives for generations. Well done, YWCA. And that wraps up my calls to action. I'll stop being pushy, well, for a couple minutes. There's so much more to add, but you get the picture. As the only unapologetically feminist organization in this city, whose sole mission is to advocate for equity through a woman's perspective, you had to know that we're going to ask more from you. You had to. And I know you're there. I know you can do this. And as I end what is now the longest toast ever made outside of a wedding reception, I've been to a few of those, and I've only had like a sip of champagne. The YWCA, I want to turn my words to those of you who are the other guests at this wildly diverse party. The YWCA cannot do this work alone. My call to action for you is to step up and step in. The YWCA needs allies in its advocacy work. And you'll notice that I talked a lot about advocacy tonight. I think one of the things that makes me so proud to be a part of this organization is not only does it provide frontline services, but it is not afraid to stand up and call out injustice when it needs to. And I know a lot of non-for-profits are worried about advocacy work. This group is not worried about it. They do it every day and they do it well. So they need allies in this advocacy work. They need you to amplify their work and policy positions in public and private spaces. Speak up when you see gender inequality, inequity, and take action to oppose it when it happens in your home, your workplace, or the public sphere. And finally, Open up your wallets and donate to the YWCA. An uneven economic recovery, the end of COVID-19 government subsidies for nonprofits, the impact of high inflation, and we feel that every day, each one of us, and the fact that so many of us got used to not going to fundraising events are all, quite frankly, ominous indicators for the next year or so for so many charities, including this one. It's going to be really tough in the charitable sector for the next couple of years. The story I just told you about the YWCA not providing women's housing wasn't because the housing wasn't needed. They got out of housing because they went through the roughest financial crisis in their history, and they had to sell their building. They clearly survived because we're all here tonight. But worrying about money means that you have to take your eyes off your mission in order to pay the bills. And right now, we need the YWCA to be laser focused on this mission, or we will never recover from this pandemic. So please make a donation tonight. I hear there are QR codes somewhere. You can next door when you're having a drink and food, and I know I'm starving, so I'm gonna stop talking here. But there's QR codes available to make donating very easy. And given the occasion, I'm gonna suggest that if you can, any multiple of $115 would be great. A loonie a year is $115. $5 a year is $575. And a Viola Desmond a year is $1,150. And if cash is tight right now, I get it. I understand. I encourage you to talk to any staff member about how you can support the work of the YWCA in lots of other ways. So I'm going to stop talking. But I do want to thank you all for your kind attention this evening. Thank you for your support of this incredible movement. And I'd like to thank the YWCA for letting me be part of tonight's celebration. And as you enjoy the rest of the night and tour this wonderful space, be sure to take a minute to raise a glass to the YWCA Edmonton. May she continue to guide, serve, and inspire us for many more years as we work together to realize her vision of a community with equity, opportunity, and choice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacky. That was just incredible, very moving, very touching. And I think we can all think about, some of your extremely strategic and powerful calls to actions as we move forward. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us tonight and help us with not only our AGM, but our housewarming party, as you said. And we're getting to that right away. So with that, I would like to declare our 115th annual general meeting of YWCA officially concluded. So thank you, everybody, for that. So before we all go, we are going to conduct the world's shortest board meeting. So we're just going to ask for your patience for a couple minutes. And then as we wrap up, we'll ask the board to come up for a photo and we can head on over for reception and tours. So I officially like to call this board meeting to order, I believe, 7:30 p.m. And the only agenda on this meeting is a motion to approve the following slate of officers for the upcoming year. So for the office of president, it's Kathleen L. Hatton-Lake, as I mentioned before. For the office of vice president is Francesca Ghossein and May Han, as well as the office of secretary, Kelsey Zalaski, and for the office of treasurer, that's Pam Zorbic. So may I ask for someone to move a motion to appoint the slate of officers as stated to the board for the upcoming year? Kenny, thank you. And may I have someone second the motion? Great. Sierra, thank you. For our new board members and your first vote. There you go. Thank you so much. So any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of appointing Kathleen, Francesca, May, Kelsey, and Pam as officers of the board for the year 2022-2023. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Perfect. And as Jacky said, it's great responsibility. So appreciate that. So with that, the motion is carried and I declare this board meeting adjourned. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and we can head on over, as mentioned, for reception and tours.
And we will be conducting, so go over, get a drink, some food, and then tours will start at 7:45 at the front desk. So if you want to go on a tour, go to the front desk and they'll be going every 15 minutes. So thank you so much. Have a great evening.
If we can get the board to just stay for a sec to take a photo before we head over. Thank you.